Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Wapiti Wednesday live Q&A for Wednesday, May 21st. So this week we are kind of building off of 2 weeks ago where we kind of did some e-scouting. And so what we are going to do, and Jim, thank you for responding to the email. You were the one and only that responded. So since you responded, I decided we're going to take that e-scouting a little bit farther and talk about finding water sources. So let's get into, because obviously you guys know me so well that I have to start with some talking points and a cheat sheet that will be sent out and available. So, all right. So first off, we're going to understand the basics of water in wilderness and the importance of it. We are not going to stay on this very long. So, you guys know about the rule of three, right? You guys ever heard the rule of three?
That's not what
You can survive 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food. So it kind of shows the importance of water. I mean, water is the essence of life. Our body is made up mostly of water. So we need it, our cells need it, our muscles need it to function, and it's critically, important to stay hydrated in both survival and performance situations. And really, our body at a minimum needs 2 to 3 liters per day, obviously more when active, like hunting, because we're sweating, we're using a lot, we're burning a lot, we need it. Now, weather elevation and exertion increases water requirements. A lot of people don't realize that cloudy, overcast days, you need just as much water as you do on sunny days, and sometimes maybe a little bit more. Also, elevation, remember, as we gain elevation, the sun increases in the intensity. So our body excretes water through sweat and those minerals a lot faster. So higher elevation is more important to get that water. So, all right. So with that said, now we're going to kind of dive into really how this is piggybacking off 2 weeks ago. So one of the things that you really want to do is learn how to start reading the landscape for water. In fact, I don't know if you guys paid attention, but when we were doing that e-scouting, I was kind of looking at the topography of the land and how the landscape kind of changes. And I was looking at some of those areas, going, man, I'll bet you there's water here, or I'll bet you there's water there. Um, that's kind of one of the things, and we'll go through these topographical indicators first, and then we're going to jump over on a map, and I'll show you. So valleys and low points, basically where water naturally collects, are the things that you really want to look for on a map. Also, too, north facing slopes retain moisture longer than southern slopes. It has to do with sun aspect and sun ratio and the evaporation content. So it evaporates slower on the north side. So those cool, dark draws also hold the water. So drainages and washes, even if dry, may have water beneath the surface. We're also going to talk about, how to read topographical map and using satellite imagery to pre-identify water sources before your trip. So, Mr. Larry, Mr. Jason, how you doing?
Good. Nice to be here. How are you?
I am dandy. So, okay, here we go. Okay. Everybody see this all right? Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes.
don't care. So, anyways, just kidding. So, okay. So, we were talking about reading the landscape. So, and one of the things I always do is when I am sitting, on a map, if I just have it on satellite, I start looking for these lines. You guys can see my cursor and how they're following these natural lines.
Mhm.
So that's some of the first things, especially like right here underneath this. You kind of see this Y shape in this natural shape. Now, a lot of times when looking at areas, I'll start on satellite, but then I will go to a topo just because topo will show me water sources a lot better than the satellite does. The other thing I'll do is I will go into hybrid. Actually, let's stay in topo for a second. Okay, I'm going to zoom in. Do you guys see how one of these creeks is solid and the other is dashed?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you guys know what the difference on those mean?
The dotted would probably be intermittent, and the solid
Correct.
would be more consistent.
Correct. So the dotted means either intermittent or seasonal. So
Okay.
if you're planning a hunt, you want more of the solid lines. Okay. Now, the other thing is, and this is why I'll come to topo first, because notice as soon as I switch to hybrid, it's harder to tell those intermittent creeks, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
So, so that's why the topo first. But the other nice thing about topo is a lot of times topo maps are really, really good for finding springs. So springs are important because springs typically will be year round. But also, too, it's one of those things that you want to mark a spring, especially if it's at the head of an intermittent creek, because there's a good chance that that spring is always flowing. And then somewhere down that intermittent creek, it drops underground and then pops back up. It's crazy how those do. And of course, later on we will talk about wet seasons versus dry seasons and how those can affect them. But springs are one thing that I absolutely love to find, because springs not only are good for water sources, but a lot of times springs are great places to look for wallows. So, okay. Now bouncing back. So, okay, there's other, vegetation indicators, water-loving plants, cottonwoods, willows, aspens, cattails, reeds, certain types of vegetations that only grow near water. So some of those, if paying attention in your hunt area, it's kind of hard to find those different vegetations when looking, but the obvious, if you're on Google Earth or OnX, anything with satellite imagery, the best vegetation indicators, and this is, scientists at NASA came up with this one. If you're looking at a satellite image and an area is green, there's a good indication there's water there. If the area is brown, it means it's dry and there's probably not any water there. So now that you guys have heard that, you understand why scientists at NASA probably came up with that, huh? I know, it's an amazing concept. So, okay. Concentration of green vegetation, moss growth on rocks and trees. The only problem is you're not going to find that online on e-scouting. You're only going to find that with boots on the ground, and the moss you're typically only going to find on the north side of the mountain in the northern hemisphere. So, seasonal changes in vegetation and what they can tell you about the water availability kind of goes back to, if something stays green, there's a good source of water. So, and you can, satellite imagery, you can bounce around to different, OnX, base maps, Google Earth. There's a bunch of them out there that you can jump to, get different images, look at different sources, because each of them is going to have different satellite images. And also, too, sometimes you can click and find out what time of year that image is. So, because if you're looking at multiple different ones and you have one that's a spring summer image, but then you have another source that is fall winter, holy crap, and you're looking at the same area, what a great indicator right there in the comfort of your home, being able to look and see the changes between spring, summer, and fall, winter. So, for finding water sources. So, okay, wildlife indicators. So, this kind of gets into, um, we're going to skip the wildlife indicators because, hold on, let me see. Let me see if I did put this later. No. Did I? Huh, 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 huh. No. Anyways, so, okay. Wildlife indicators, game trails. You guys have heard me talk about when you get boots on the ground and you go into an area and you find a game trail, what have I told you guys to do?
Follow it.
Follow it. That game trail is going to tell you a lot. It could lead you to water. It could lead you to bedding. It can lead you to feeding. But the thing you're going to find is if it's a game trail that's heading to water, that trail is going to get more and more prevalent because you're going to have a lot of trails that are smaller subsidiary trails that will be coming together, coming together, coming together. And as you get closer to water, that trail is going to get bigger, wider, and that powdery dirt is going to get deeper because all those other trails are congregating into that one trail that goes right to that water source. That kind of gets into the fresh tracks becoming more concentrated as they approach water because it's all these other routes coming into one. The birds flying in a straight line, I don't know. It came up during my research, so I threw it in. Insects, I don't really pay attention. So if you want to pay attention to insects, the only time I pay attention is in the evening when the sun's setting and the crickets start chirping, just because I like hearing the crickets as the sun's setting, especially if there's bulls bugling in the background. All right. Questions so far? Perfect. Okay. Types of water sources, streams and rivers. So we kind of already talked about using maps and terrain features for finding streams and rivers. So lakes and ponds, those are pretty self-explanatory. Just look for masses of blue. It's easier to find lakes and ponds, just like it is with springs and seep on a topo map versus a satellite imagery map. Even if you do have an overlay, topo maps, topo maps are really your best source for really locking in on water sources. Then you can use that information and overlay it with satellite imagery. And that's where Onyx Hunt is really nice because you can do that hybrid and drop pins. You are still going to have to get boots on the ground and double check. So, just like hunt areas, same thing with water sources, have backup plans, have contingency plans. Because especially if it's an area you've never hunted before, you don't know what's going to happen with that water source. You could get to that spot in September in the middle of your hunt and it be dried up. Just like you could get to your hunt and there's 16 trucks parked at the gate at the trailhead that you want to go up. So, okay, seasonal water sources. This is the ephemeral streams are basically springtime water runoff. So those are areas or those are streams that, same thing with the vernal pools, those typically only happen during spring. Now, depending on the snowpack, the moisture content, and snow melt, that will determine how long into the year those streams and pools stick around. But also, too, it kind of plays into La Nina versus El Nino. Are we in a wetter year or are we in a drier year? El Nino, drier, less rain. Some of these intermittent streams are probably going to dry up. So your water sources are going to be a lot more concentrated in those El Nino years versus La Nina. Remember, we talked about it where food's all over the place because of all the rain and all the moisture. Same thing with water too. So now, if you live in more arid places, it's a little harder, and this is where your maps will come in because Arizona and New Mexico, the more arid places, they actually have water tanks. The water tanks actually are marked on a map. They are numbered. The only drawback is every other person in that area knows exactly where that same water tank is. So, in fact, Jim, I think you told a story once about one water tank and how many trail cameras was on it?
Oh my God. It was just stupid. I don't even remember now. There was trail cameras everywhere.
Yeah, it's that's the hard part. If you get into more arid areas, even it could be, Colorado, Montana, Wyoming, Idaho. Maybe it's an El Nino year where it's drier. So,
Our, our
um,
forecast is calling for an active, above normal monsoon season, especially up where we're elk hunting. So, well,
active above normal
mhm.
monsoon. Well, that's
Well, we need something because this whole state's on fire. So there you go.
is it really already?
Oh my God. Up in the White Mountains, the Greer
Oh,
fire.
yes, yes, yes. I did see that.
Now,
Sorry.
I just a little while ago, I was just looking out the window. I go, those are some funny looking clouds over Mount Lemon. No, there's a fire back there.
Oh,
Yeah,
no, I did see something the other day. So yes, I remember that. So,
yeah, yeah.
okay, some hidden water sources to think about. Now, this could be this is more for survival than it is for hunting. Rock pockets, depressions in rock that collect rainwater, especially after a storm. Especially if it's a good amount of rain, it could it could pool up on these depressions, and it could be a place for you to use a filter or a pump to refill water needs. So, tree cavities, yeah, again, it came up. I've never thought about it or done it. Morning dew collection. So, do you guys remember the old Boy Scout trick with the black plastic bag and the leafy green bushes?
Hmm.
Okay, Larry's shaking his head. Greg's like,
Mhm.
"Ooh, what are you guys doing with green leafy stuff in black plastic bags?" We're transporting marijuana off the mountainside, Greg. So, so
Gotcha.
No, actually, so if you take a broadleaf, green leafy bush, branch, tree, whatever, you can take a black plastic bag and encompass all of that branch with those leaves. And between the dew collection and the process, it actually will produce water, and that black plastic bag will collect water.
But never very much.
It's not,
So,
but you know what? It could be enough to get you to the next water source to where you
Hmm.
can fill up. So, snow and ice is another water source. The main thing is snow and ice. Eating snow and ice is going to drop your internal core temperature and increase the risk for hypothermia. So, if you have the ability to melt the snow and ice into actual water, you are much, much better off. But if you don't, snow and ice can act as a water source to keep you a little bit hydrated. So, Okay. Yeah, groundwater access. We're not gonna do that because obviously I can't demonstrate a solar still. So solar still is another way. Boy Scout again, black plastic bag, dig a hole in the ground, put a cup down in the bottom of it, put that plastic bag, you have the edges, perimeters, and then you put a rock down in the middle, and basically the black will condensate on the underside, run down, drip into the cup. If you have any rain, it's going to catch in the bag and go down to the cup as well. Again, not very much. So, all right, water sources and elk hunting success. So, understanding elk hydration patterns. So, obviously, elk are just like us, they have daily water requirements, but their water requirements are a little higher because they actually use the water within their digestion process with their four-chambered stomachs. So, we all know preferred watering times are typically dawn and dusk is when they water most, but they will get up during the middle of the day and water also, especially if they are bedded near water. Now, the seasonal variations in watering behavior does change. So, they will tend to water more in hotter area or in hotter times of the year, and also during really active times of the year. So, can you guys think of a really active time of the year for elk?
Uh,
Right.
September.
I knew you guys were smart. Okay. Weather patterns can affect what elk water usage too. They're a lot like us. They get a bad storm rolling in, high winds and all that kind of stuff. They will hunker down. So, but they are like us too, that they have a certain window that they can go without water. So even if that storm is socked in, they will get up and get to water sources. So, all right. Setting up near water sources. I've done it in the past. The problem is I just don't have the patience. So I know a lot of people that sit on water sources. They will sit in tree stands and they will sit there all day long and they kill elk every year. I
There's a guy where I hunt that puts a tent up on a pond dam, and
Yeah,
he sits there the whole season, and he usually gets a cow. Almost every year he gets a cow.
just by sitting in a tent on a water dam.
All day long, every day.
I mean, the longest I've probably ever sat on a water source is sitting in a blind antelope hunting. That's it. So elk, yeah, so. Um, yeah, this one kind of made me chuckle because if you guys know how to read tracks to determine the frequency of use and timing, I am all ears. Let me know because I have never learned how reading tracks can determine the frequency that they come in to use it. So, I mean, you let me. You can look at tracks and tell the age of them. So, whether it's, that day or the day before or a couple of days before, but to use that to determine frequency and timing of water, especially the timing, that one kind of made me laugh a little bit. So, wind considerations when hunting near water, just remember elk are typically, approach the water with the thermals in their nose. So, because they want to know what's by the water. So just be careful. Make sure that you're kind of usually with water sources set up on the opposite side of the water from the trail coming in. Um, Usually that trail coming, you sitting on the opposite side, a lot of times your thermals will blow the opposite direction or will blow a different direction and not follow the trail most of the time. But wind's wind. I mean, it's never 100%. So. All right, scouting water sources. We already talked about Onyx, Google Earth, how to use those. Trail cameras at water sources are a great source. Um, a lot of times I don't set my trail camera up right at the spot where they're watering. I will set it up on the trail, usually 25, 30 to 50 yards away from the water source, just because I want to see more of their travel on the trail than I do actually just watching them drink water. So, glassing techniques, you can actually get higher elevations and glass. This is also another good way of finding water sources, especially if you're in a new area. If you're glassing in the evening, watch where the elk start coming out. You can kind of start getting an idea of where they're headed to, where they're coming from. You can drop those pins, but you can also take a look at the topography, and especially through glassing techniques, that's where you can find some of those vegetations that we talked about that are, prominent around water sources. Then you can take that information, back home, then jump on X and kind of compare the information with what you're seeing there. So, this is kind of one of the things that I was preluding to, identifying secondary water sources that other hunters might overlook. If you've got a water source that's easy to get to, chances are there's other people that know about it. That's where now I'm going to take a look at the map and go, okay, if they get pushed out of this water source, where's their next one? Where are they going to? If they're pressured, are they going to take a left instead of a right at Albuquerque and go to a different water source? Come on, guys, that was a Bugs Bunny
It's a
reference.
Bugs Bunny, you know.
Okay, Jim caught it. Okay. Man, I was like,
Yeah.
geez, is this thing on? You guys aren't even getting my Bugs Bunny references tonight. Okay. So we're gonna finish this off with some key points and memorable quotes, just because I was kind of in this mood when I was putting this together. So, finding water isn't just about filling your bottle. It's about understanding the lifeblood of the ecosystem you're hunting in. Because
Wow.
it really affects more than just the game that you're chasing. So there's another quote on down a little bit that I was like, ooh, I like that. So um, weird. You guys will get a chuckle about this one. The best hunters think like elk. You guys have never heard me say, are you moving like an elk or are you moving like a
Yeah, yeah.
human? Are you calling like an
Yeah,
so
sound like an elk. Yeah.
but when you look at your area, think like an elk. Food, water, shelter, security. So now, food, water, shelter, security. Water is the most predictable of all of these to pattern. That's why when you go into an area and you find that game trail, follow it. Man, now you find that water source. Now you can start following the trail backwards, find bedding, find feeding. But that water source is going to be the most predictable because they are creatures of habit. They will go back to the same place to water. So, okay. Practical tips. When you're out there looking, don't just look for water. Listen for it. Moving water makes a sound that carries quite a distance. And a lot of times you can hear the water before you can see it. If you're doing your first scouting of an area in the springtime right after the snow melts, those creeks are flowing a lot more and they're a lot easier to find those water sources. So use your ears to find that water also. So when tracking game, the trails to water are like highways. They're used repeatedly and by multiple species. It's not just elk that are using those trails. That's why on those trails you'll see elk tracks, deer tracks, bear tracks, mountain lion tracks, coyote tracks, grouse tracks, chipmunks, rabbits. Everything uses those trees or those trails. So in dry country, finding water doesn't always just mean finding a drink. It means finding elk too. Those animals know where those water sources are. So Okay. I kind of touched on this. Elk are creatures of habit when it comes to water. Find their preferred water source, and you found the key to their pattern. So that's where find that trail, follow that trail. You find a water source, you drop a pin. Now, if you have coverage, start looking at on X. Is there more water sources right around here? Am I on a creek? Is there another pool 100 yards up that, holy crap, I thought the trails were pretty good coming into this little pool, but 100 yards up this creek, there is a really big pool, and you ought to see the amount of animals and tracks and sign coming into that. So, a lot of times when the trail leads me to a creek, I will follow the creek up just because I want to know more, especially if I know I'm not too far from the head of that creek. I want to get up into that head of the creek. That's how I have found little meadows, little wallows, places that a lot of people don't stumble upon or know about. You can find a lot of hidden gems by just doing that. So, all right, the difference between hunters who consistently fill tags and those who don't often comes down to understanding water sources and how elk use them. Okay, and I love this one too. Sometimes the best water source for hunting isn't the biggest or most obvious. It's the one that offers elk the best combination of water access and security. This is what I'm talking about. You find that creek, you start going up and down it, you might find a little tiny pocket that is just secluded. And it's just a small, tiny little trickle of water. But man, that thing's getting hammered. Because they could either go to that big, wide open spot down there and get a drink, but they don't have that safety, they don't have that security. So, all right, we're going to wrap this up with inspirational and philosophical because, I was feeling philosophical. Love this one. Water teaches us patience. Wait by it long enough, and the mountains will reveal their secrets.
That's deep.
It's so true though, because last year, that opening weekend, that first day, we did that loop, and then we came back and we spread out, sitting on different little water pockets on this tiny creek. And I mean, chipmunks, rabbits, grouse, deer, bear. We watched a bear come from the point across, come all the way down to the face, get a drink of water, and then turn around and go back up. I mean, we sat there for 4 hours, 5 hours. The amount of game that we saw and the amount of activity was just absolutely incredible. So, all right, understanding water in the wilderness connects us to the same knowledge our ancestors relied on. It's in our DNA as hunters. Our ancestors understood the importance of water. They used water to their advantages as part of their hunting strategy because, believe it or not, our ancestors did not have onX or base maps. They didn't even have topo maps or GPS. They had skills and knowledge. And that's part of that mountains. It's kind of that skill set that has been lost over the generations.
Yep.
That was good.
Okay. Well, did anybody learn anything about tips for finding water?
Yeah, it's a
Oh,
good
yeah.
meeting. Good meeting,
Yeah.
thanks. Good presentation.
Yeah, I'm really surprised too because before some of you others jumped on, I told Greg and Jim that I didn't just send this email out to Wapiti Live Q&A members. I sent it out to every single member of Elk Calling Mastery Blueprint of, hey, why don't you guys come join us on a live Q&A? Just tune in, see what it's all about. I think y'all scared them off.
Well, we didn't have that many takers. Holy cow.
No, it's all the usual suspects. So,
It's my fault. I'm too ugly.
well, your camera was off.
I tried to help.
You couldn't scare him with the black screen. So, yeah, no, I was kind of curious. So, but no, water sources, and it's kind of funny because we don't think about it that much, and we also get into, just like I mentioned, elk are creatures of habit. We're creatures of habit also. We kind of learn certain areas about our hunt area, and we become comfortable, and we stop exploring, and we stop learning more about our hunt area. So I would challenge each of you, if you are hunting the same place over and over and over, never stop learning about that area. Each year, I know, we switched to where we're at now just last year, but the other place we were hunting, that's kind of one thing that we went in with every year. Every year we each went in with, okay, I want to learn one new thing this year about our hunt area. Whether it's a different trail to access a hunt spot, or a different advantage point for bugling from in the morning. So, but just challenge yourself to learn one new thing about your hunt area every year. And you'll be amazed that after a little bit, you'll be able to sit down and all these pins that you're looking at, and it's like, oh, man, I've kind of been over every single inch of this area. But also, too, you go back and you look at those things, it's like, oh man, you know what? I forgot about that little bench. That, man, that thing used to hold. Every time we went there, there was always a bull screaming. God, why did we stop going there? So we all have those kind of areas too, that for some reason they get pushed to the back of the closet, and we completely forget about them. So, all right, guys, that's all I got for you tonight.
Well,
Hopefully,
you're also right about that, sitting on the water hole and watching. You never know what's going to come in. I know I was in one of your favorite things in the world, tree stand one time, and had all kinds of stuff, and I had a wolf run right underneath me. That's just something you don't see every day.
Wow.
no, and you know what's funny is I can sit there in glass and watch water sources during the summer. I can sit there for hours behind the glass watching. I can sit on a water source in the evening for hours watching what's going to come out. But come September, I just
Gotta
can't
go.
do it.
Just can't take it.
No, because my mind always tells me on the backside of that ridge right over there, there's a
There's
bull
something over
screaming
there.
his head off, and there ain't one screaming over here where I'm at. So I got to go over there on the other side because I can't hear him. He's on the backside. So, and then by the time I get over there, then it's like, dang it, I waited too late. He's already moved to a different spot.
They're always bigger on the other side.
They are, just like the
Yeah,
grass is always greener on the other side of the fence.
that's
The
it.
bulls are always bigger on the backside of the ridge.
Mhm.
Okay. Any questions, comments, concerns, gripes, or complaints tonight?
No, it was good.
Great.
I was curious who won the sheep feet draw.
I suppose I should probably do that, huh? Are you in it?
Yeah, better be.
Oh, you bought a pair?
A couple.
Yeah. What do you think of them?
I think I should have got a size bigger. They're awfully tight.
Really? But do you
I got
feel
big
the
feet.
do you feel the support?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's so. Yes, I need to do that. So I've just been so. In fact, I thought about that the other day. It was like, ugh, we're just over halfway through May, and I haven't completed that that draw yet. So I'll shoot an email to Caleb, get all the names of the people that use the code, and we will get that done next week. So I do know this. I think you have a 1 in 10 odds of winning the pack. So,
I like those odds.
oh, but if you bought two, that's two entries for you. So,
Oh,
because it's per entry. So I know there was about 10 people. Yeah, I think a couple of people got multiple pairs. So yeah, we'll call it 1 in 15 to be safe. So your chances are pretty good.
Fair enough.
All right. All right,
Oh,
guys.
hey, Michael, one quick thing. I know I asked you once already, and I can't remember what you said. I got to get a new bugle tube. Was it the Enchantress that you were one of the ones that you were using? I can't remember.
Yes, the Enchantress was my favorite, but they just came out with a new one that just became my new favorite.
Well, I still got to buy one, so you know.
So that's the Enchantress. So good. I mean, the Enchantress to me has the perfect amount of back pressure for note stability. This is their new one, which is the Legend. Has just a little bit different mouthpiece. But the other cool thing too is has a little pouch for reeds.
Oh,
So
that would be handy.
this
I
thing,
think I lost 5 reeds on the mountain last year, and my tube. So you know.
okay, Enchantress. Legend. We got the dog going.
I think an elk would like either one of those.
So my take on it is the Legend has a little bit more volume and a little deeper bottom end. It doesn't have the same back pressure that the Enchantress has, so you have to work just a little bit more on note stability. So you can't go wrong with either one.
Fair enough.
So okay.
Okay, guys. Thanks a
All
lot,
right, guys.
Michael.
As
Very good.
always, keep calling, keep practicing. More importantly, though, have fun, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks on the next Wapiti Wednesday live Q&A. Be safe, everybody.
All
See ya.
right.